It is Thursday. It is the 14th of October. I'm heading out to take care of some of that stuff that I take care of. I'm in a mood. And I'm not sure what I'm going to do about it, so I guess I'm going to talk about it. Not sure that, depending on where this goes, maybe shared, maybe not. As I've said before, I've got the whole iceberg effect going on. I have a certain amount of what I do, who I am, that is above the water and visible, and then the bulk of it is underneath. And every day it's a choice as to what to present to the world. And that could be via these recordings, that could be my interactions with others. But I process and edit everything that comes out, and it's a presentation. I am presenting a portion of myself in a manner that will allow me to somewhat be myself, but also continue to move towards the things I desire, draw things to me without doing anything that limits my options. But there's days like today, well, and the other day before yesterday, I recorded, and I was feeling extremely tense, edgy, angry, full of contempt. And I kind of talked my way through it and got through that, and I actually felt pretty good after that. And I made 3 recordings that day, and I felt pretty good about those. I tried to process them the same night, but I honestly could not remember which recording was which and what was on each of them. I had the general memory of making them and what they were. So I got the first video processed and stored, but somewhere in the storing process, and I was checking on it, I lost it. The whole program shut down, so I don't know how much of it is actually there. And I honestly just didn't care at that point. I started to drift back into that kind of edgy feeling, and caring about things like that in that state of mind is almost impossible. So I was like, fuck it, whatever it is there, and the rest of it's gone. But I just wasn't in the mood to process anymore that night, so I didn't. I left them till last night, and I really, over the past couple of days, it felt kind of physically shitty, just not good. I mean, my joints have been a little bit stiff and sore, my muscles have been somewhat fatigued, and just I felt uncomfortable, physically uncomfortable, and not necessarily in pain, not necessarily sick, just haven't felt great. And I got off work yesterday, and I was like, you know what, I can do whatever I want. Rhonda's going to the pool doing her swimming thing. I've got some time to myself. I can do what I want. And that sense of freedom usually puts me in a pretty good mood. I feel pretty good and comfortable about things, and but didn't have that effect yesterday. I still felt and was getting more and more edgy, uncomfortable, And got home, and I couldn't. For the second night in a row, all I wanted to do was lay down and relax and not do anything. I didn't want to think about making dinner. I didn't want to think about what was going to be on TV, or I didn't want to think about philosophy or what's going on in my life and what steps to take. And but to a certain extent, I felt unsettled and unhappy. And ever since I made that recording on Wednesday, there was a point where I locked into political mindset, and being locked into that, I had a good, clear picture of my perception, my view of the state of the world from a political standpoint. Government, society, foreign policy, everything. I just had a really good, clear picture, and I was like, "Damn, I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna talk about it." And it all faded really quick. That clarity just kind of dissipated, and I was left with fragments that I wasn't really able to do anything with. But I felt pretty good about it. I felt like I was getting close to being able to publish something from that aspect, a presentation of political evaluation. And kind of coupled with that, because everything is connected, was my philosophical point of view about life and pursuing life, and what I've been doing and how I've been doing it, and the reason behind it. And to a certain extent, a certain level of depression was setting in, because I feel like I've locked into a certain goal because I feel like I have to do it, or it's going to be the most beneficial, but it's not necessarily the most pleasant or most enjoyable. And I thought about deviating from that course, is where my mind has been going. And I talked about this again the other day, and the moving forward with opening a property management company, and how it would be a good, stable financial base based on where I'm at, that I could step into with very little money, with very little help from other individuals, and build a foundation to be able to do things that I want to do, that bring me more joy, that I'm more passionate about. And when I talked my way through it, I felt pretty good. But then I reverted back a little bit, and now I'm back in that spot where, again, I feel like I want to be more self-serving, more self-gratifying. I want to do things that make me happy. I don't want to do anything that I don't necessarily enjoy or look forward to doing, even though I know it is probably a good foundational step to take. So that's where I'm at again today. And it's where I've spent most of my life, because I have this unseen side of me and then this seen side, and I'm trying to get as much of this into this, but the magnitude on this side eclipses what is over here. And trying to get as much of the unseen into the seen without causing any problems, because there's the potential for problems. There's the way I see the world. It's the way I interpret the seen and the unseen, and there is a certain truth in that, and it's a truth that's relative to me. It's my own personal truth, and it's volatile. There's going to be things in there that are going to upset some people, because there's going to be an obvious set of perceptions and perspective out there by humanity that is based on ignorance. And I have to be very careful not to upset that balance. And that's kind of where my political thing was going. It was, again, how much of what I see do I want to share? Because there are things that I see as truth that others will ignore, or wish to ignore, or will continue to ignore because they don't want to see it as what it is. But when it comes right down to it, it doesn't matter what you're dealing with. It doesn't matter if it's politics, if it's religion, if it's your day-to-day life. There is a balance, and there has to be opposing sides, opposing forces. And very few people have the ability to live where I live at that balance point and see equally both sides of that spectrum. You are going to shift to one side or the other. That's how I see it. That's my perception, my perspective. Depending on which side you are standing on, the other side is going to seem wrong or bad. It's an opposing force. It's what's balancing your side out. So unless you're right in the middle, if you're dead set right at that balance point, and you're seeing this side equally and this side equally, which is where I exist, you are going to be somewhere else, and you may only be a step over that line to one side, and you are still balanced out with the other side. But the further you go in the opposite direction and embrace whatever it is that's on that side, the more the other side is going to fight back. The stronger that force is going to be, the more you're going to view it as evil, as wrong. So the way I'm going and where I'm sitting, I can see both sides, and I can point out both sides, and I can point out the validity of both sides. I can see it, I can feel it. But I cannot present something that encompasses all without pissing somebody that's on one side or the other side off. There's going to be that's human nature to take sides, to choose a standing point and oppose whatever is on the other side. That's just fundamentally how we are as a race. And I've been trying to get as much of myself out there without affecting that balance, and without affecting or offending anybody on either side. And it's starting to wear on me. And it's always been a source of exhaustive effort to keep that balance. But even when I look at it, even when I look at my own perception and perspective, again, it's relative to me, and I understand that. I see that. So my way is not the way for everybody, and I would never try to force that. But I think my way would afford a freer, more pleasurable lifestyle, because I don't think you would take offense to your opposing side if you knew how necessary they were to live the life that you were living. And that's an offshoot that I had no intention to go down. What I was getting into today was what I've done so far in my life, and this is the presentation, this is the package that I have been generating, that I was hoping to market and sell and profit off of, was showing individuals how to manipulate their perception and perspectives, and how to manipulate their reality to get to where they're going. And I've been trying to do it in a step-by-step manner that is very easy to follow and understand. You could look at each step and understand how that applies to your life and implement it. And I have been doing it from the get-go without utilizing my own resources. Everybody's going to have a different set of resources, and it's just the closest thing to a universal truth that I can embrace, that you're going to have come from everybody's going to come from a different source. It's just, that's how I see the world, that's how I see the universe, that's how I see everything. You're going to come from a different source, you're going to have different experiences, you're going to be at a different point of evolution, which means you're going to have more resources available to you. My resources, I think, are infinite. They go back the depth which can't even be calculated or understood with our perception. I feel like I have that there, and when I get to days like today, it's my frustration at being human and not being able to use them or access them, or choosing the choice that I have made to not use them or access them, because sometimes I just want to break free and fly, and I feel like once I've dipped into that well and I've crossed that line, that it'll be even harder to come back to this, even if I chose to. It wanted to. It would be difficult. It would be something that would be hard to backtrack on. So what I've done is I've tried to lay out a path and a process that calculates in what I would consider to be an average set of resources, an average level of evolution on this planet. There are people that are going to be below that. There are going to be people that are, like I said, this is what I've been doing is I've been trying to move forward as what I would consider to be the level of average, so that the average individual, people even below average or above average, can do the same thing. But it was really geared to incorporate the largest mass percentage of humanity that could possibly be grouped together to be able to give everybody in that group a diagram to follow. So the handicaps that I have given myself from get-go, which I mean they were hardwired in by me, I take full responsibility for that, and I have shed some of them and been able to continue to maintain and not abuse the gifts, skills, I don't know how to phrase it, that I have accessible. So what I've been doing is participating in the game, following the rules as understood by society, and step by step tried to overcome them with the applying the same amount of will and focus that the average individual would have. And I've been successful. I feel like I've gotten to a fantastic point. I've talked about that over and over and over again. I'm very happy with where I'm at, and I'm wanting to move forward, and I'm wanting to increase my quality of life, and I think that's what everybody wants to do. And I'm still operating under these self-imposed handicaps, and sometimes I just want to shake them off and do what I can do and enjoy it to the level that only I have the capacity to do. So in taking all of that and factoring in into where I'm going, for me, the next logical progressive step would be to open a property management company, because that's where I'm at, that's the resources I have. Now I have the ability to take other routes that I think would be, I've assigned a certain weight and a certain value to these different approaches, and I have determined, and this may be something that's a lingering issue of being human, which creates a certain nobility out of self-sacrifice, and that's one that I still struggle with in my own humanity, is that whole self-sacrificing approach and the value that carries to other individuals. We assign a lot of value to that, but I don't think it, from my standpoint, I don't think it has as much value as we give to it. It doesn't. I think it's more detrimental to your growth and your individuality. I mean, it is noble. Self-sacrifice is, don't get me wrong, it is, but it becomes addictive to a certain sense. You're addicted to creating that self-sacrificing martyr image in hopes that it has an impact, and it does to a certain extent. I think in moderation it has more power. I think you get into a self-sacrificing, self-deprecating state of mind that you basically limit and inhibit what you can do, and your way of enjoying and pursuing life. And I think at some point the exchange is no longer equitable. I think it's extremely noble to sacrifice the self for a noble cause on occasion, and I think that has tremendous impact not only to yourself and your evolution, but to the people that benefit from that and the people that view it. I think everybody benefits from that. But when you get into a mindset that that's the best way to go, and you're no longer is it an equitable trade. I think the value that you get from it is diminished the more often you do it, and I think the value that others get it, because it becomes more common, and it's a fact of our reality. The more rare, the more valuable. That's just so. The more you put out there, the less value it has, and I think it becomes even more detrimental to the self once you've passed that mark. And so anyway, I'm not taking a self-sacrificing approach. I don't think that I'm putting myself up for martyrdom by the way I've lived my life, but I've definitely not lived it to the capacity that I could, because I was intentionally limiting myself so that other people could see what I've overcome and how I've overcome it, using the same resources that they would have available. And at some point, I really want to break that mold, and today is one of those days, and it does come quite often for me, where I just want to shake that shit off and again, fly, do my thing. And the last week or so, the more time I spend doing this property management thing, and the more I deal with the ignorance of humanity on a daily basis, and I factor into the stupid stuff I see every day that's generated due to this political situation we're in now with this presidential run, and I that's what kind of really motivated and generated that desire to create and present my point of view of that, because I think it would help people see things differently. You'll never change people's mind. I've said it over and over again. You'll never be able to change somebody else's mind that doesn't have an open mind. All you can do is put up a presentation and hope they see something in it that they didn't see before. And if they have blinders onto that, you're never going to change that. So, but I'm at that point where I'm frustrated with what I see and I deal with on a daily basis, and I want to change it. And I think the best approach, the most conducive approach to me from a very focused, grounded, center point of view is subtle changes. But there's days I just want to smash that bitch with a fucking sledgehammer, and today's one of those days. I just want to break shit up and let the pieces fall where they fall and see if anybody can put them back together, which I know I could put back together, but may not come down to that. So again, I'm holding back. I'm restraining the things that I see, and just don't know what approach to go. And somebody just pulled up here, and I need to figure out what they're doing here before I do what I'm supposed to do here. So I think I'm going to go ahead and cut this off here. I feel like I've expressed enough, and I'll probably come back to this later today because I do have a lot more on my mind.